The Atlantis is an earlier Indonesia book. Part 2. Santosaba works. Created as a discourse to scientists based on academic studies and studies, in an effort to restore the true history of Indonesia. INDONÄSIARYÄ. By Santosaba. Exploration and research. Complete info. WhatsApp to +62 813 2132 9787. The Real Eve, US documentary and book title. Out of Eden, UK book title. Main article. The Real Eve. In 2002, Oppenheimer worked as a consultant on the television documentary series, The Real Eve, produced by the American cable network Discovery Channel and directed by Andrew Piddington. This series is known as Where We Come From in the UK. The Eve in the title refers to the mitochondria of Eve, the name used for the most recent common ancestor of all humans in the matrilineal, mother-to-daughter, lineage. Following his series, Oppenheimer published a book on the same theme, originally titled Out of Eden in the UK and published as The Real Eve in the US. This work, published in 2004, focuses on Oppenheimer's hypothesis that modern humans emerged from East Africa in a single large exodus of no more than a few hundred individuals. This group is nomad. Oppenheimer states that they are the ancestors of all non-African races based on grouping into a number of physical characteristics, language, ethnicity and culture as seen today. In his 2006 book The Origins of the British revised 2007, Oppenheimer argues that either the Anglo-Saxons or the Celts have had much of an impact on the genetics of the inhabitants of the British Isles, and that British ancestry is mainly traced to the Paleolithic Iberian people, now best represented with the Basque, as a replacement. He also argues that his descent includes the race that exists in Scandinavia. He published an introduction to his book in Prospect magazine and answered several criticisms in more Prospect magazine articles in June 2007. James Burnett, Monboddo, Early Philosophers for Formulating the One-Source Theory of Jared Diamond Robert A. Foley Tumas Kivisild Luigi Luca Cavalli Sforza Chris Stringer Brian Sykes Rosser Z, and others 2000. Y Chromosome Diversity in Europe. American Journal of Human Genetics 67, 1526. Foster P. and Toth A. 2003. Towards the Kinship Chronology of Ancient Gaul, Celts and Indo-Europe. Proc of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States 100, 9079. Forster P. Polzin T. and Roll A. 2006. Evolution of Basic English Vocabulary in Germanic Language Networks. In Forster and Renfrew, eds. Kinship Methods and Prehistoric Language, McDonald Institute. Atlantis is Indonesia. Archaeological evidence shows that Neolithic culture began around 5,000 years ago in the archipelago. Anthropological evidence shows that humans with mongoloid physical characteristics also appeared. This mongoloid population has existed in the archipelago around 5,000 to 3,000 years ago with Austronesian languages and agricultural technology. The results of the study found that the theory that modern humans developed in several parts of the world separately, multi-origin. Therefore, early humans whose fossils were found at various sites in Java, Homo erectus, Homo solonensis, Mojokertensis, and in China, Peking man, are considered to be the oldest and earliest human fossils on Earth. The National Archaeology Center has successfully examined skeletons 2,000, 3,000 years old, namely ancient DNA research from the Plawangan sites in central Java and Gilimanuk, Bali. The research shows that Indonesian humans who live in the two sites have been genetically related since 2,000, 3,000 years ago. In fact, until now the Balinese and Javanese human populations still have a close genetic relationship to this day. In the archipelago there are 50 ethnic Mongoloid populations who inhabit it. Their culture and language belong to one language family or phylum, namely the Austronesian languages, which indicate they came from a common ancestor. Nusantara is the term for an archipelagic country located in the Indonesian archipelago today. Chinese records have named these islands Nan Hai, which means the South Sea Islands. Ancient records of the Indians named it Dwipantara, which means the land of Seberang Islands, which is derived from the Sanskrit word Dwipa, island, and between, outer, opposite, and is also called Swarnadwipa, Golden Island, namely Sumatra today. The Arabs called this area Jazir al-Jawi, Java Islands. The archipelago currently has at least 50 ethnic populations living in it, with its own cultural and linguistic characteristics. Most of this population with Mongoloid physical characteristics have languages that belong to one language family or phylum. Their languages are Austronesian languages, which indicate they come from a common ancestor. Whereas in eastern Indonesia there is a population whose languages belong to various Papuan languages. From the two theories about the origin of humans who inhabited the archipelago, the Sundanese land continent is the common thread. The approach of philological, anthropological and archaeological analysis of the kingdoms of the ancient archipelago, as well as the analysis of their interrelationships with each other, will most likely reveal the darkness of the archipelago's past. Harry Truman theory. This theory says that the ancestors of the Austronesian people came from the Sundanese land plains, which sank during the Ice Age Pleistocene era. This population had an advanced civilization. They migrated to mainland Asia to Mesopotamia, influenced the local population and developed civilization. This opinion was reinforced by Umar Angara Jeni, saying that Austronesian as a language family is a major phenomenon in human history. This family is the most widely distributed, covering more than 1,200 languages spread from Madagascar in the west to Easter Island in the east. The language is now spoken by more than 300 million people. The opinion of Umar Angara Jeni and Harry Truman about the distribution and influence of the Austronesian language and nation was also confirmed by Abdul Hadi W.M. The concept of Atlantis attracted the attention of Nazi theorists. In 1938, Heinrich Himmler organized a search in Tibet to find the remains of the White Atlanteans. According to Julius Evola, Revolt Against the Modern World, 1934, the Atlanteans were Hyperborean Nordic superhuman, Übermensch, who came from the North Pole, see Thule. Alfred Rosenberg, The Myth of the 20th Century, 1930, also describes the Nordic Atlantean, or Aryan Nordic, race. The early theory of human civilization being in the Sunda Shelf, Sunda land, was also put forward by Professor Arios da Nunos Santos, 2005. Santos applies philological, linguistic, anthropological and archaeological analysis. The results of the analysis of the reflections of buildings and historical artifacts such as pyramids in Egypt, sacred temples from the Mayan and Aztec civilizations, the legacy of the Mohenjo-daro and Harappa civilizations, as well as geographic analysis such as area, climate, natural resources, volcanoes, and farming methods, shows that the rice terracing system that is unique to Indonesia is the form adopted by the Borobudur Temple, the pyramids in Egypt, and the ancient Aztec buildings in Mexico. After conducting research for 30 years, Santos concluded that Sunda land was the center of an advanced civilization. The early theory of human civilization being in the Sunda Shelf, Sunda land, was also put forward by Santos, 2005. Santos applies philological, linguistic, anthropological and archaeological analysis. The results of the analysis of the reflections of buildings and historical artifacts such as pyramids in Egypt, sacred temples from the Mayan and Aztec civilizations, the legacy of the Mohenjo-daro and Harappa civilizations, as well as geographic analysis such as area, climate, natural resources, volcanoes, and farming methods, shows that the rice terracing system that is unique to Indonesia is the form adopted by the Borobudur Temple, the pyramids in Egypt, and the ancient Aztec buildings in Mexico. After conducting research for 30 years, Santos concluded that the Sunda land was the center of an advanced civilization thousands of years ago known as the continent of Atlantis. In a book Atlantis, The Lost Continent Finally Found, the definitive localization of Plato's lost civilization, the work of a scientist from Brazil named Professor Aristotle Nanos dos Santos concluded that Atlantis was Indonesia. In his research for 30 years later, the results were written, including showing 33 comparisons, such as area, weather, natural resources, volcanoes, and farming methods. According to him, the shape of the pyramids in Egypt and ancient Aztec buildings in Mexico originated from the Sundanese land as reflected in Borobudur. Santos determined that in the past Atlantis was a continent stretching from the southern part of India, Sri Lanka, Sumatra, Java, Kalimantan, continuing eastward with Indonesia as its center. In that area, there are dozens of active volcanoes and are surrounded by a unified ocean called Oriental, consisting of the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. Santos argued that at the time of the eruption of various volcanoes, the ice sheet melted and flowed into the ocean so that its area increased. The water and mud from the volcanic ash burdens the oceans and their bottoms, causing tremendous pressure on the Earth's crust on the ocean floor, especially on the coasts of continents. This pressure resulted in an earthquake. This earthquake was strengthened again by mountains that erupted later in succession and caused a terrible tsunami wave. Santos named it Heinrich events. Between Plato and Santos agree. Namely, first, that the location of the submerged continent was Atlantis, and by Santos it was confirmed as the territory of the Republic of Indonesia. Second, the number or length of the volcanic chain in Indonesia. The oldest kingdom recorded on the island of Java based on archaeological evidence is the Salakonagara Kingdom, built in the 2nd century AD, which is located on Teluk Lada Beach, Pandeglang, Banten. It is strongly suspected that they immigrated from Sumatra. Actually, there has been an advanced civilization in the archipelago, but historians have never been tracked and recorded in its history. Meanwhile, the oldest kingdom recorded in Sumatra was the Jambi Malay Kingdom, Chupo, namely Koying, 2nd century AD, Tupo, 3rd century AD, and Kuntala, Kantoli, 5th century AD. According to the story Tombo Adat of Lubuk Jambi, which was inherited from their ancestors, it is said that this is where the Lubuk people come from. In Tombo it is also mentioned that in this area there is a Kandi's royal palace which has long been lost. The palace, called the Domna Palace, sits on a hilltop surrounded by a clear river. The search for royal relics has found locations, artifacts, and debris that are strongly thought to be relics of Kandi's, with location characteristics similar to Plato's 347 BC sketch of Atlantis. Kingdom of Salakonagara. The Kingdom of Salakonagara. Salaka means silver or Rajatapura. The source is listed in the Wangsakerta manuscript. This kingdom was built in 130 AD, which is located on the coast of Teluk Lada, Pandeglang Regency, Banten. The first king was Dewawarman, who had the title Prabu Dharmalokapala Dewawarman Haji Rakya Gapura Sagara, who ruled until 168 AD. In the Sundanese Babad, Kota Perak was previously ruled by Aki Tyarm Sang Aki Luhur Mulya or Aki Tyarm. At that time the city was called Pulasari. Aki Tyarm married his daughter, Pahachi Larasati, to Dewawarman. The territory of this kingdom covers all the coasts of the Sunda Strait, namely the coast of Pandeglang, Banten to the east to Agrabantapura, site of Mount Padang, Chanjar also to the Sunda Strait to Krakatau or Apuinusa, Nusa Api, and to the southern coast of Swarnabhumi, Sumatra Island. There is also an assumption that the city of Argyre, which Claudius Ptolemais found in 150 AD, was the city of Perak or Salaknagara. In the Chinese news from the Han dynasty, there is a record of the king Tiao Pian, Tiao is Diwa, Pian is Warman, from the kingdom of Yediao or Java, sending envoys, ambassadors to China in 132 AD. The Minangkabau people admit that they are the descendants of King Iskander Zulkarnain, Alexander the Great, king of Macedonia, who lived 354 to 323 BC. He is a very large king in world history. Its history is a history that is full of conquests of the East and West like no other. He wanted to combine Western culture with Eastern culture. In Tombo it is stated that Iskander Zulkarnain has 3 children, namely Maharajo Aleph, Maharajo Depang, and Maharajo Darajo. Maharajo Aleph became king in Bania Ruhun, Roman. Maharajo Depang became king in China, while Maharajo Darajo became king on Pulau Emas, Sumatra. In the past, there were 3 people who ascended to the throne of the kingdom, one named Maharaja Aleph who went to the land of Ruhum, Europe, one Maharajo Depang who went to China, and another named Maharajo Darajo who went to the island of Sumatra. A ruler in the land of Ruhum, Rum, has a very beautiful daughter. Iskander Zulkarnain married the daughter. With this daughter Iskander had 3 sons, namely Maharaja Aleph, Maharaja Depang, and Maharaja Daraja. After the 3 adults, Iskander has a testament to his 3 sons while pointing as if telling them in that direction they will have to go to continue their power. Maharaja Aleph was appointed towards Ruhum, Maharaja Depang in China, Maharaja Daraja to the Golden Island Nusantara. After King Iskander died, his 3 sons left for the area indicated by his father. The King of Kings carried a crown called the Sengahana crown. The Japanese emperor carried a weapon called the Jerpa 7 Disturbs. the Maharaja Alif carried a weapon called the Karis Sempana Ganja Iris, and 3 Leela. A Sepuchik falls to the earth and a tree returns to its origin, so it becomes gems and Galiga and a sword called Sabalula. Sailing the ark that carried the 3 sons to the east, to the island of Lankapuri. Arriving near the island of Ceylon, the 3 brothers separated. Maharaja Dipang continued to China, Maharaja Alif returned to the land of Ruham, and Maharaja Daraja continued his voyage to the southeast to an island called Alkibri Java, or also known as Golden Island, Andalas or Sumatra now. After sailing for a long time, the peak of Mount Merapi was seen as big as a duck's egg, so the ark was aimed there and anchored near the top of the mountain. As the sea water shrinks, they develop there. Perka Island is one of the names of the present name Sumatra Island. This island has changed its name according to the times. It is estimated that this island was once a continent that stretched widely in the southern hemisphere. Due to changes in the movement of the Earth's crust, there were continents that sank to the bottom of the oceans and scattered islands emerged. Perka Island appears intermittently lined up from north to south, which is bordered by the sea. At that time the island of Sumatra was like a piece of cloth, so that the island was named Perka Island. The island of Sumatra has passed through centuries of history with several name changes, namely, Perka Island, Gold Island, Swarnabhumi, Andalas Island, and finally Sumatra Island. Perka Island is located adjacent to the Malacca Peninsula, which is bordered by the Malacca Strait in the east and the Indian Ocean to the west as a border with the African continent. Perka Island is adjacent to the Malacca Peninsula, so the area inhabited by humans for the first time is on the east coast of Perka Island because it is easier to reach than the western coast. Lubuk Jambi ancestors are believed to have descended from King Iskandar Zulkarnain. 3 sons of Iskandar Zulkarnain named Maharaja Alif, Maharaja Dipang and Maharaja Daraja scattered looking for new areas. Maharaja Alif to Banda Ruham, Maharaja Dipang to Bandar China and Maharaja Daraja to Island of Gold, Sumatra. When anchored on Pulau Emas, Maharaja Daraja and his entourage established a kingdom called the Kandi's Kingdom, which was located in Bukit Bakar, Bukit Bakau. This area is a green and lush area surrounded by clear rivers. When the Maharaja arrived at the Mangrove Hill, he built a magnificent palace called the Damna Palace. Putra Maharaja Daraja is named Dharmaswara with the title M. Transo Maharaja Daraja, Prince Maharaja Daraja, and another title is Datuk Rajo Tunggal, more familiarly called. Datuk Rajo Tunggal has a great weapon, namely a karis with the head of an eagle head, which is still held by Daniel, the title of Datuk Mangkuto Maharajo Darajo. Datuk Rajo Tunggal married a beautiful daughter named Bunda Pertiwi. Bunda Pertiwi siblings with mother blood white. The old white blood mother and the youngest mother earth. After Maharaja Daraja died, Datuk Rajo Singhal became king in the kingdom of Kandis. Bunda Dara Puta edited by Datuk Bandaro Hitam. The symbol of the kingdom of Kandis is a pair of red and white botanical flowers. The economic life of the Kandis kingdom is from forest products such as resin, rattan, and swallow nests, and from agricultural products such as gold and silver. The area of the kingdom of Kandis was rich in gold, so Rajo Tunggal ordered to make a gold mine at the foot of Bukit Bakar, which was known as the Tita mine, meaning a gold mine that was made based on the king's decree. Until now, this mining legacy is still called the Tita mine. Forest products and agricultural products from Kandis are traded to the Malay Peninsula by the Minister of Trade, D.T. Bandaro Hitam, by wearing a ojung or wooden boat. From Malacca to Kandis brought goods needed by the kingdom and society. Thus the trading relationship between Kandis and Malacca until Kandis reached its peak. The Kandis kingdom trade minister who went back and forth to the Malacca Peninsula brought merchandise and married a Malacca. As the first person to establish a trade relationship with Malacca and leave the story of the kingdom of Kandis with the Damna Palace to his wife and children in the Malay Peninsula. At this location, things that characterize the hill are found as relics of human civilization. Approximately 2 kilometers before Bukit Bakar was found lined with karst, sea rocks. This stone is thought to be the outer ring fence of the kingdom. Karst stone, which is thought to be the outer ring fence of the kingdom. On a hill surrounded by a very clear river, at its peak, karst rocks are found that fill the top of the hill. The karst rocks on the eastern and northern slopes are exposed, while the southern and western slopes are buried. The southeast slope was found like a stone pillar that was thought to be a former palace tower. On the eastern slope of the upper hill about 1,200 meters from the river was found the mouth of a cave which was thought to be the door of a palace, but this door was already closed inside by stone ruins. The door to the cave is 5 meters high with a room inside as far as 3 meters, and in the cave it looks like there is a large room inside but it is closed. On the slopes of the hill from the south to the west there are 3 levels of terraces, presumably the former water ring, while the north to east slopes are very steep and appear to have been severely eroded. This terrace has an average width of 4 meters, the distance between the river and the first terrace is approximately 200 meters, the first terrace with the second terrace is approximately 400 meters, the second terrace with the third terrace is approximately 500 meters and the slope length is estimated at 1,500 meters. Based on the analysis on this hill map from east to west with a diameter of 3,000 meters, and from north to south with a diameter of 3,000 meters, the difference in elevation between the river and the hilltop is 245 meters. On the southwest slope, at about 800 meters slope height, there are fast-flowing springs. This measure is based on estimates in the field and measurements on satellite maps. To get the actual size, you need to measure in the field. Seeing the characteristics or character of the location, this location is very similar to the sketch of the kingdom of Atlantis written in Greek mythology, Timaeus and Critias by Plato, 360 BC. This work of Plato mentions Poseidon carved the mountain where his lover lived into a palace and closed it with 3 round trenches which increased in width, varying from 1 to 3 stadia and separated by rings of earth of comparable size. The Atlanteans then built a bridge to the north from the mountains, creating a route to the rest of the island. They dug a large canal into the sea, and beside the bridge, made a cave into a ring of rock so that ships could pass into the city around the mountains. They made a pier out of the stone wall of the ditch. Every entrance to the city was guarded by gates and towers, and walls surrounded each ring of the city. The walls were erected from red, white and black stones originating from the moat, and covered with brass, tin and orichalcum, bronze or brass. There is a similarity between this mythology and the mythology in Lubuk Jambi. Plato Atlantis Iskander Zulkarnain Candies. Plato, Greek-born philosopher, who lived 427–347 BC. Plato was one of the students of Socrates, the wise philosopher, who was then poisoned by the tyrannical ruler of Athens in 399 BC. Plato had frequent adventures, including his travels to Egypt. In 387 BC he founded the Academy in Athens, a school of science and philosophy, which later became a model for modern universities. The famous student of the Academy was Aristotle, whose teachings had a great influence on philosophy to this day. With the Academy, many of Plato's works were saved. Most of his written works are in the form of letters and dialogues, the most famous of which is probably Republic. His written work covered subjects ranging from science to the Academy. Much of Plato's work has survived. Most of his written works are in the form of letters and dialogues, the most famous of which is probably Republic. His written works cover subjects ranging from science to happiness, from politics to natural sciences. 2 of his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, contain the only original references to the island of Atlantis. How is his relationship with Iskander Zulkarnain? Iskander was the son of the king of Macedonia, Philippus II. When he was 13 years old, King Philip hired the famous Greek philosopher, Aristotle, to be Alexander's personal tutor. In 3 years, Aristotle taught various things and encouraged Iskander to love science, medicine and philosophy. Iskander Zulkarnain a student of Aristotle, and Aristotle a student of Plato. From this relationship it can be assumed that the descendants of Iskander Zulkarnain who arrived in Lubuk Jambi were inspired to build an ideal civilization, state like Atlantis. So they built a Domna palace a replica of Atlantis. One day in 1968, the Bimini Islands around the Atlantic Ocean in the Bahamas Island cluster, the sea is calm and clear like bright glass, translucent to the bottom of the sea. Some of the divers on their way back to the Bimini Islands suddenly screamed in surprise. At the bottom of the sea there is a great road. Several divers simultaneously plunged down. It turned out that there was indeed a large stretch of road composed of giant stones. It is a large road built using rectangular and polygon stones. The size of the stones and the thickness are not the same, but the arrangement is very neat, the contours are brilliant. Is this the way of the post of the Kingdom of Atlantis? In the early 70s, around the islands of Yasuil in the Atlantic Ocean, a group of researchers had taken a coral core by drilling at a depth of 800 meters on the seabed. According to scientific terms, that place was actually a landmass 12,000 years ago. The conclusions drawn on the basis of scientific technology are much like those described by Plato. However, is here the sinking of the Kingdom of Atlantis? There are several records about the efforts of scientists and people in a quest to prove that Atlantis really existed. According to Plato's version of the sinking of the Kingdom of Atlantis, approximately 11,150 years ago. Plato has said several times, the state of the Kingdom of Atlantis is told from generation to generation. Absolutely not his own invention. Plato even went to Egypt to ask the directions of local famous monks at that time. Plato's teacher, Socrates, when talking about the Kingdom of Atlantis, also emphasized, because it is real, its value is much stronger than the fabricated story. In 1979, American and French scientists with very sophisticated instruments discovered the pyramid on the seabed, the Triangle of Death, Bermuda Sea. The length of the pyramid is approximately 300 meters, the height is approximately 200 meters, the top of the pyramid with the ocean surface is only 100 meters, bigger than the Egyptian pyramids. At the bottom of the pyramid there are two giant holes, seawater with amazing speed flows at the bottom of the hole. This great pyramid, was it built by the people of Atlantis? Atlan's royal troops conquered Egypt. Did the Atlanteans bring pyramid civilization to Egypt? The American continent also has a pyramid. Did it come from Egypt or did it come from the Kingdom of Atlantis? In 1985, two Norwegian sailors discovered an ancient city under the sea area, Triangle of Death. In the photos the two of them took, there are plains, vertical and horizontal roads and passages, domed roofed houses, fighting arena, animals, temples, riverbanks. They both said that they absolutely believed in what they found was the continent of Atlantis as described by Plato. Is that true? Even more shocking is the research conducted by Santos, a scientist from Brazil. Santos emphasized that Atlantis was an area which is now called Indonesia. In his research for 30 years written in a book, Atlantis, the lost continent finally found, the definitive localization of Plato's lost civilization, he presented 33 comparisons, such as area, weather, natural resources, volcanoes, and farming methods, which finally concluded that Atlantis was Indonesia. According to him, the rice terracing system that is unique to Indonesia is the form adopted by the Borobudur Temple, the pyramids in Egypt, and the ancient Aztec buildings in Mexico. In 1974, a USSR Marine observer ship made 8 pieces of photos which, when extracted, form an ancient human masterpiece building. Was this built by the Atlanteans? A life filled with intelligence. In my previous life in Atlantis, I was a knowledgeable person, promoted to head of the female energy of the Crystal Guardian, the equivalent of a current head of a power plant. This energy center is located in a large space with an arched roof. The floor was made of sand and stone walls. In the center of the room a giant crystal was placed on a black base. Its function is to channel energy throughout the city. My duty to protect the crystal. This work is not the same as the current operating system of the factory, but by maintaining determination in the heart, understanding one's own soul, is an important part of the work. It is a soul-controlled installation. There is a man who is smart and clever. He is our protector, another protector of women. My hair was long gold, and it was curled up in a gold knit thing, just like in Greek times. Hair in a high bun, with a curved roll falling down on his back. Every day my hair is styled by a hairdresser, this is part of the routine. The philosophy believed by the people of Atlantis is that the body is the temple of the soul, therefore very concerned about the cleanliness of the body and how to dress. This is the main thing in life. I was wearing a long, see-through shirt, using a gold leaf ribbon tied behind my back after crossing it in front of my chest. Men dress in long skirts as well as short skirts, some people wear hats, some don't, all are made with the same clear white material. Like a uniform, but in those days, completely indistinguishable. Wearing this only showed a status, symbolizing the maturity of our soul and body. There are also those who wear other colors of clothing, but from the same clear material, they wear colored clothes for medicinal purposes. The relationship is very large with an imbalance of the body's energy centers. Specific colors have a medicinal function. I often go to hear the dolphins' advice. Dolphins live in a place built especially for them. A large beautiful lake area has giant steps that penetrate the middle of the lake. The two-sided pillars of the steps are magnificent pillars, while the lake area is connected to the sea by means of a large canal. In the daytime the dolphins swim there, playing. After nightfall returns to the wide ocean. Dolphins roam free, signifying it's a very special place. Dolphins are our best friends and advisors. They are very smart, and are a source of balance and harmony in our society. Few people go to hear the dolphins' intellect. I often swim with them, pet them, play with them and listen to their advice. We often exchange ideas via telepathy. Their energy makes me full of vitality as well as gives me strength. I can go for a walk according to my heart's desire. For example, if I want to go to a vast field far away, I close my eyes and focus on that place. There will be a light wooing voice. I open my eyes, then I am already in that place. I like to be with unicorn, flying horse, the most. They are like horses eating grass in the wilderness. Unicorn has a horn on its head. Just like dolphins, we contact via telepathic connection. In relative terms, unicorn's thoughts were very innocent. We often exchange ideas. For example, I want to run fast. The unicorn will answer, very well. We run together, our hair flying in the wind. Their souls are so calm, peaceful, arousing respect. Unicorns never hurt anyone, let alone have evil thoughts or intentions. Even when they meet challenges, they will still be. I often feel sad for people today, because I don't believe in the existence of these animals at all. A soul coach told me, the moment when the world conditions return to balance and harmony, everyone accepts each other, loves each other, at that time the unicorn will back. Beautiful environment. In the northeast of Atlantis lies a vast expanse of grassland. This meadow gives off a subtle fragrance, and I love to sit there in meditation. The scent is so warm. The uses of fresh flowers are numerous, so they are widely planted. For example, flowers that are blue and white are planted together. This is not only very visually appealing, it is indispensable for the effectiveness of vibrations. These pastures are cared for by people who have received special training and are of high quality and are rich in knowledge. Herbologists began to care for them from the time they sprouted, then plucked and extracted the starches of life. In the work environment at Atlantis, there was rarely a low position. No matter how humble the job is, it is still seen as an important member in our society. Society is used to respecting and complimenting the capability of other people. Those who grow fruit, vegetables and growers of legumes also live in the Northeast. Most of them are botanists, nutritionists and other food experts. They are responsible for providing food for our entire civilization. Most of the people are defined as physical workers, for example gardeners and builders. It will make their body condition remain stable. A small proportion of them have intelligence. The work arrangement is adjusted according to the level of their intelligence development. Atlantis people think that physical work is more beneficial. It makes their emotions, feelings, get a balance. Anger and depressed moods can be directed constructively. Moreover, the human body is born for physical work. This has been proven. However, there are always exceptions. For example, men who are female or vice versa. In the end, smart people will guide these people to work according to their conditions. Everyone will go to intelligence, take on the role of their own character. All of these are the most basic things. The entire life of Atlantis is a harmonious set that is not universally bound to plants, minerals, animals and vegetables. Everyone is a part of a particle. Everyone knows that their service is very much needed. In Atlantis there was no financial system, only trading activity. We never carry wallets or keys and the like. Rarely is there greed or envy, only determination. High technology. In Atlantis there is a flying vehicle that is similar to a flying saucer. UFO, they use a magnetic field to control the rotation and landing energy. A means of this type of connection is commonly used for long distance travel. Short trips only use a pulley that can accommodate 2 people. It has an engine that is similar to a hydrofoil ship. The principle of working with flying tools also uses a magnetic energy field. Others, such as food, household commodities or large items, are transported in the same way using a large vehicle called subbers. Single quote. Atlantis is a very large civilization. We communicate using ships to broadcast news to various regions. Most of the information received by smart people through the inner response, they have the ability to receive in a special way. It is similar to a satellite receiving station, and very accurate. So their job is to sit and receive information transmitted from elsewhere. Actually, in work, the way I operate the large crystal is also worked through the heart. Advanced medicine. In this civilization, there are no serious illnesses. The treatment methods used all involve crystals, colors, music, fragrances and potions, developing the overall effectiveness of the treatment. A medical center is a place with many rooms. When the patient entered, a color will be noted on the wall. Then the patient is directed to a special room to determine treatment. In the first room, the assistant who is well trained and knowledgeable about the treatment will detect the frequency of vibrations in the patient's body. Information transferred to another room. In the room, the patient will lie on the flat granite, while the other assistant will arrange a treatment plan that is suitable for the patient. After that, the room will be filled with therapeutic music. Special crystals will be placed on the patient. The entire room is filled with a soft fragrance. The last one will appear to be a color. Next, the patient is asked to reflect, so that the medicinal energy can penetrate the body. Thus, all existing senses will be healthy again. Color heals the sense of sight. The aroma of plants heals the sense of smell. Melodious music heals the senses of hearing. And finally, pure water heals the sense of taste. Meditation finished. Had to drink water from the tube. The energy is enormous, like a beam of light, illuminating the body from top to bottom. The entire body like have been met. Medical techniques are always concerned with magnetic fields and solar energy, as well as physical and psychological treatments. Strict child education. When the baby is still in the womb, it has been given sound, music and intelligence guidance at that time. While in the womb, smart people will give directions to the parents of the prospective child. Since the baby is born, parents care for and educate him at home, cherish and love their child. During the day, the children will stay in daycare, listen to music there, see the vibrant colors and stories related to positive thinking and philosophical themed stories. Children's education centers, available everywhere. Children are educated to become living beings who have perfect intelligence. Learn to open minds, so that physically and spiritually they can work together. At the stage of child development, smart people play a very big role. Educators have an honorable position in the Atlantean society, usually only when they reach 60 to 120 years old, depending on the growth of intelligence. And that's a work which everybody want it. In all regions, everyone receives education from the age of 3. They receive education in multi-story buildings. In front of the school building there is a rainbow symbol. The rainbow is a symbol of the guidance center. The main lesson is to hear and see. The pupil is relaxed lying down or sitting down, so that the vertebrae are not subjected to pressure. Another method is to contemplate. The eyes are closed with an eyeshade, and the eyeshade is displayed in various colors. When musing, a visualization method like this is very effective. Simultaneously it is also given a subliminal tape. When the body and brain are relaxed, knowledge flows into the memory portion of the cerebrum. This is one of the most effective learning methods, because it has closed all channels of information that can distract. Smart person guides the student, depending on the level of the child's ability to absorb, and makes it easier to see certain talents he has. In this way, every child has the same opportunity to develop their potential. Positive forward thinking and vibrational frequency are the main keys in the learning period and encourage open inner insights. The higher the vibration frequency level in the brain, the higher the vibration frequency in the soul. The more positive the inherent consciousness, the more it reflects both extrinsic and latent consciousness. When the two are compatible, it opens a positive worldview. If the two are incompatible, then people will drift into greed and power. For the people of Atlantis, controlling the thinking power of others is an uncivilized way of life, and this is not justified. In our history books we have felt insecure and at ease. The character of our uncivilized ancestors still influenced our society at that time. For example, choosing animals for experiment. However, the rule of intelligence strictly forbids interfering in the lives of others. Even though we know there are risks, we should not force or punish other people, because each person must be responsible for the development of his own heart. In that society, feeling insecure is for the sake of getting security. Philosophy like this is very good, and highly respected by people at that time. He is our protector. The apocalypse that hit Atlantis. I have no husband. At that time, the people were not married. If you intend to tie someone up, then you will perform a binding ceremony. The binding has absolutely no legal effect or binding force, only based on feelings of heart. The sex life of the Atlanteans was very dynamic in order to maintain health. I decided to live with him based on impressions of sex, intelligence and attractiveness. At that time, sex was an important part of life. Sex was as important as eating or sleeping. This is part of the existence of life as a whole. After all, our bodies do not physically reveal our age. Generally we can live to be 200 years old. There are also people who have sex with animals, or with half human and half animal. For example, the body of a horse with the head of a human. At that time, the people of Atlantis could carry out cross-breeding transplants, for the sake of harmony between humans and animals in nature, but some people forget this. Their starting point is sex. People who are aware know that this will result in an imbalance in our society. People are very anxious and afraid of this, but there is no preventive action. This has a lot to do with our belief. Humans have the freedom to choose, and one person should not interfere with the intellectual growth of others. People who choose animals as opponents usually lose balance in their souls, and are considered immature. Offensive advanced technology. During my lifetime, we knew that Atlantis had come to a point of death. Among us there are some people who know this. However, it is the vast majority of people who either deliberately ignore it, or are not interested in it. The material elements have lost their balance. Technology is very advanced. For example, air pollution is purified, air temperature is adjusted. The advancement of technology, until we began to change the composition of air and water. This last led to the destruction of Atlantis. The four constituents, namely wind, water, fire and earth, are the most fundamental of our galaxy and our Earth, the most stable material base. Trying to unite or change these essential elements violates natural laws. Scientists working and living in the western part of Atlantis, they succumbed to greed, for the sake of power and personal honor, intended to control the four main elements. Now nature knows that this has resulted in total destruction. They think that they are above other people. They fantasize about being God's figures, wanting to control the basic constituents of the star. Towards doomsday. The prophecy of the doomsday had been widely circulated, but only those who were clever and who followed a spiritual path knew why. The end of our civilization is only caused by a handful of humans. The prophecy says, the earth will rise, a new land will appear. Everyone started fighting again. Only a handful of lucky people will live. They will spread all over the new land, and the story of Atlantis will be passed down from generation to generation. We will return to the past. Interesting lesson. The dolphins once told us the day doomsday will arrive. We know that time is getting closer, because it has been 2 weeks without seeing dolphins. They told us that when we were going to a quiet place, and guarding the crystal ball, the dolphins told us we could safely go west. Many people left Atlantis in search of new lands. Some went as far as Egypt, some were approaching the apocalypse, leaving Atlantis by boat, to new lands that were not on the map. These lands are not part of our civilization, therefore they are not under our protection. Many feel disappointed and leave us, actively seeking a safe and advanced environment. Therefore, Atlantis was almost without immigrants. However, after the journey of a handful of people to the strange land, they returned safely. And the state of the country has at least told us about life outside of Atlantis. I chose to stay behind, making sure the energy crystals didn't take any damage, until the very end. Crystal constantly supplies the energy to the city. During the last few weeks, the crystals were covered by a transparent shield made of a special material. Maybe one day, it will be found, and used once again for good intentions. When the crystal is found, it will prove the civilization of Atlantis, as well as uncover other mysteries that have not been revealed for several centuries. I still remember the longest day, the last second, the earth ran aground, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, catastrophic fires. The earth plates collided with each other violently. The earth is experiencing destruction, the people inside the arched roof of the crystal building are welcoming on his arrival. My soul is very calm. A building shook violently. I was pulled by someone over the wall, we hugged each other. I hope to die soon. In the sky, thick smoke swirled, I saw earth lava gushing out, red flames coloring the sky. The room in the house was full of smoke, we were very crowded. Then I passed out. Next time, I remember my spirit flying towards the light. I looked down and saw the land was sinking. The seawater was roaring, swallowing up everything. People fled in all directions, if not swallowed, the terrible water would have fallen into the crater of fire. I hear clearly the sound of screams. The earth is like a giant pot of boiling water, like a wild beast that is starving, biting and swallowing all its prey. Sea water has submerged the land. Source of destruction. Through Ingrid Bennett's memory, it is known that the level of technological development of the Atlanteans was very different from our present civilization, even though her experience of the material was different from modern science. On the contrary, it was similar to ancient Chinese science, developing in other ways. This kind of civilization goes far beyond today's civilization. Just hearing it is like reading a fictional novel. Compared with the present, the ability of the souls of the Atlanteans is very much considered, even has supernormal abilities, being able to communicate with animals. What people now pay attention to is being smart and talented, being fed with various knowledge, but ignoring internal strength. The Atlanteans emphasize the intelligence of the soul, and the body, to develop all the hidden potentials of the human body. This allowed their civilization to develop rapidly in the long term, and the main cause did not cause imbalanced symptoms. Regarding the extinction of the civilization of Atlantis, people now deserve to ponder. Plato describes the destruction of Atlantis in his dialogue as follows. The laws applied by the sea god made the people of Atlantis live happily. The justice of the sea god received high respect from all over the world. The rules of the law were carved into a copper pillar by the previous kings. A copper pillar was placed in the center on the island of the sea god temple. But the people of Atlantis began to become corrupt. Those who had worshipped a false god became greedy, wanted to live comfortably, and refused to work with a life of luxury and luxury. Single quote. Atlantis existed in the prehistory era of Indonesia. It turns out that the continent of Atlantis is Indonesia. Continue to Part 3.